All right, what's going on, everybody? Good morning. Um, I wanted to jump on real quick because not a lot of people are talking about this, and it may not be a big deal to a lot of people, people who don't care about the business of boxing, who are not interested in the business of boxing. You hear a lot of people say, I don't care. I just want to see the fight. All I'm cared about is how good the fight is. I don't care who's promoting it, who's broadcasting it, blah, blah, blah. You know, the usual people who have these types of opinions, and they have a right to their own opinion. Myself, I tend to talk about everything. I don't just pick and choose what I want to talk about. I don't have any hard rules on this channel. I don't talk about this. I don't talk about that. I talk about everything. And this topic about Usyk Joshua 2 not being part of this DAZN deal that Joshua has recently signed, it is very, very mind-boggling to me. And I've been highly critical of DAZN, and every time I do criticize DAZN, everyone, not everyone, but a large group of people will say, "Well, what are you, an idiot? Why are you criticizing DAZN? You're getting all these fights free or not free, but they'll use the word free. You're getting all these fights free where you'd have to be paying pay-per-view for them, and we all know that's changed, right? This was back in the day. Oh, well, you're only paying $9.99 a month or $99 a year, and you're getting all this content where you have to be paying pay-per-view. What are you, an idiot? Why are you criticizing them?" Well, because of the moves that they make, things are constantly changing because we knew that the prices were going to go up. We knew that eventually, or we suspected, D-Style and myself suspected that they were eventually going to do pay-per-view fights because the original model was just not sustainable. And they continue to do moves that make you question how, I don't know how, I don't want to insult their intelligence, but you have to question like just the thought process behind a lot of these moves, right? So why would you sign Joshua to a long-term deal? And then arguably the biggest fight of that deal, which is Usyk Joshua 2. I know a lot of people are gambling on that Joshua could win, and then the biggest fight will be Fury, but that's a big risk for DAZN to just assume that Joshua will beat Usyk, and then they'll have the Fury fight. And even if Joshua does win, Bob Arum and Fury have said we're not going to go fight him on DAZN. So at the very least, this is the biggest fight, the most lucrative fight out there for Joshua, right? And the Saudis putting up, I believe they put up $150 million, if I'm not mistaken. And for DAZN to not be part of that at all, and for them to exclude this fight from the deal, it is a head scratcher for me. And once again, it just doesn't make sense to me. And now, if it's not on DAZN, right? And there's also a rumor that the Saudis want it to be on Sky. How is that going to affect us? How are we going to be able to watch this fight if it's not on DAZN, right? I'm sure there'll be some way that we can watch it, but who's going to be the distributor here, right? And how much is the pay-per-view going to be? Because we're going to have to pay for it. It's not going to be a free fight for us. I can almost guarantee you that. And I did put a link to the video. Shout out to Boxing Social. They did a great interview with Eddie Hearn. Rob Talbert's always doing a great job over there. As a shout out to him. He was talking to Eddie about it. And Eddie confirmed it. Yeah, this fight is outside of the DAZN deal. And he also asked Eddie that there's rumors about Matchroom being sold. And Eddie said, yeah, well, we're thinking about going public, right? And maybe Eddie would sell his shares and maybe just become like a part of a group now, instead of just being the man, right, himself, right? So he could be like part of a group. So again, how is this going to affect us in terms of being able to see this fight? And once again, it is just crazy how DAZN continues to make these head-scratching, mind-boggling moves that don't seem to be very smart from a business perspective. So you're going to sign this guy to a long-term deal, right? And this is arguably the biggest fight that's on the horizon for him, because again, we don't know what's going to happen when, like, if he loses to Usyk, I'm sure he's going to continue to fight on. There's still other good fights out there for him, but will any of them be as big as this Usyk fight? I mean, if he fights Wilder, but once again, all these fights that could be potentially big, not all of them, but a lot of them, the zone's going to have a hard time, and Matchroom's going to have a hard time putting these fights together, because if Wilder does fight Joshua, I have will he want to fight him on DAZN, or will he be adamant about fighting him on PBC, on Showtime pay-per-view, or Fox pay-per-view? So once again, I think DAZN is taking a big risk signing Joshua to this long-term deal, number one. Number two, it's crazy for them to sign Joshua and not be able to secure the rights to this fight in terms of broadcasting, right? And also, why sign Joshua to a long-term deal when you don't even know if he's going to beat Usyk? And then you could sit there and say, okay, yeah, there's other fights out there, the Wilder fight, maybe a Dillian White rematch, whatever. But once again, who else is going to pay $150 million site fee for any other of Joshua's fights? And if Saudi was to say, okay, yeah, Joshua lost, but we'll pay a substantial amount for Joshua versus Wilder. Is Wilder going to want to go to Saudi? Is Wilder going to want to fight on a platform other than Fox or Showtime? And this is unprecedented to me. Like, this would be like Floyd Mayweather, right? Who signed his 6-fight deal with Showtime, right? Then the MGM Grand saying, "Oh well, we'll take the Pacquiao fight. We'll pay the site fee for the Pacquiao fight, but we have to choose who's going to broadcast it." You think Showtime would go along with that? You think even Floyd Mayweather will go along with that? So this is almost like a totalitarian move from the Saudis. Like they want to control everything in regards to this situation. Does it even make sense? And by doing this, is this going to be a deterrent for other promoters and other, sports entities? Is it going to be a deterrent for them wanting to do business with the Saudis? Because if they're going to be told who the broadcaster can be, because a lot of promoters obviously have deals with broadcasters, and are they going to be able, or are they going to want to be, phased out of a fight because of the location, telling them, who the broadcaster is going to be? So this is just crazy to me. I don't understand it. And to my knowledge, it seems unprecedented. I can't picture, ESPN say, like, being told, okay, yeah, Tyson Fury can fight at the O2 Arena, but we don't want it to be on ESPN. In order for us to stage this fight, we're gonna have to choose. It's got to be exclusively on Sky, and ESPN can have no part of the broadcasting. Like, I just can't envision Fox, ESPN, Showtime ever going along with a situation like this. Because as I said, not to sound redundant, this ultimately could be the biggest fight that is out there right now for Joshua, right? Because again, if he wins, there's always that Fury fight. But once again, how much of a part will DAZN have in that? You know what I mean? If they're going to have to share a big piece of the pie with ESPN, I'm sure ESPN's going to have the rights. They're going to be the lead broadcaster in that, right? I'm sure. So this is crazy. So I think DAZN is giving up a lot of leverage here, in my opinion. From Eddie Hearn's perspective, Matchroom's perspective, either way, they're getting the money one way or the other. And it's crazy because Eddie Eddie is a genius. I mean, he finds a way to just get this big money out of people, and you got to give him credit, man, for being able to put together this relationship with the Saudis. I'm not a big fan of the Saudis. I'm not a big fan of the fights being held in Saudi Arabia, but at the end of the day, Eddie's job is to uh, get the most money for his fighters, and he's done that. He's done that, whether or not you like how he's done it, but he's done it, right? So it's not a bad move from Eddie's perspective, because he's getting he's going to be getting a lot of money to be part of this fight via the Saudis. But once again, DAZN partnering up with Matchroom and Eddie being an integral part of DAZN's investment into the sport of boxing, for them to just accept this and for them to just say, okay, this is great, you know, we're not going to be part of this in any way, shape, or form. Seems like they're leaving a lot of money on the table, and they're investing heavily in Joshua. Once again, just like they invested in Canelo with that original 11 fight deal, and that fell through because they never got the fights they wanted out of it. Just like they invested in Golovkin, where they invested $100 million into Golovkin, and they never got the fights they wanted out of it. And now, several years later, they're finally getting the Golovkin Canelo 3 fight, and it remains to be seen if it has went past its sell-by date, because we don't know how many pay-per-views it's going to do. And I'm sure it would have done a lot more, would have been a lot more lucrative, in my opinion. It would have had a lot more attention if it happened when it should have happened, and instead of several years later. So DAZN continues to make crazy moves, questionable moves to me. And you have to ask yourself, how long are they going to be able to, stay in the sport of boxing when they keep making these moves that just do not seem to make financial sense? How in the hell are you going to sign a long-term deal with Joshua? Number one, not knowing if he can even beat Usyk, because if he loses to Usyk, his market value is going to go down substantially. So why would you sign a long-term deal knowing that there's a chance he could lose to Usyk? That's number one. And number two, why are you going to sign a deal with Joshua and then arguably the biggest fight possible in that deal, which is a rematch with Usyk, right? You got the Saudis putting up all that money, so they're basically making this a very high lucrative fight, right? They wanted the fight bad, right? So why would you sign this deal with Joshua and agree to not have this fight be part of the deal? It makes no sense. So I don't know. If Sky ends up picking this up because Saudi does have the broadcasting rights to the fight, so they could. It's a rumor that Sky is going to be chosen by the Saudis. That's where the Saudis want the fight to be broadcast. That's a rumor. It hasn't been confirmed. But if you click the link in the description box to the video, once again, to the Boxing Socials interview with Eddie Hearn, Eddie Hearn dismisses the rumor, but you have to ask yourself, if it's not Sky, who else could it be? Who else could it be? There's going to have to be some type of distribution to the UK market. And if it's not DAZN, who else could it be? It's sure as hell not going to be BT, right? So by default, by process of elimination, you would have to suspect strongly that it could be on Sky, right? And that's another thing too. We hear a lot about how Joshua, and again, I'm not trying to shit on Joshua. He can do whatever he wants. Obviously, everything he's done has turned to gold from a monetary standpoint. But it's ironic that you hear Eddie Hearn and Joshua both say how loyal Anthony Joshua is. And he had this long-term deal with Sky, made a ton of money with Sky. And then all of a sudden, he decides to end that relationship with Sky and sign with DAZN. And then you look at the whole relationship with Rob McCracken after he lost to Ruiz. Oh, I'm loyal. I'm not going to fire Robert McCracken. It's about loyalty. And then he basically fires Robert McCracken. So I don't know. There's just a lot of changes going on here, a lot of questionable moves. And again, the whole Robert Garcia thing, with all due respect to Robert Garcia, I'm still questioning that move too. I just don't know how much of an impact he's going to have on Anthony Joshua. The expectation that, or the implication or expectation, however you want to frame it, that Anthony Joshua is just going to go in there and steamroll Usyk. All he has to do is be more physical, and he's going to be able to win this fight, knock out Usyk. The only reason why he fought the wrong fight, that's why he lost. Again, he tried to make the adjustment in rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8, and Usyk made another adjustment. So that's the thing, bro. I mean, like, he tried to get more physical. We've seen guys try to get physical with Usyk, and he's got an answer for it. It's not like this expectation that all Joshua has to do is become more aggressive, and he's just going to walk through Usyk. I highly question that. Usyk is a much more skilled fighter to just fall apart just because someone's pressuring him. He knows how to deal with pressure. We've seen him make adjustments in fights, not once, not twice, but several times in fights. He's switched things up, right? He made about 3 or 4 adjustments in that first Joshua fight. So he's got more tools in the toolbox to fall back on than Joshua. And we've seen Joshua hasn't really looked, incredibly aggressive. He's since the Klitschko fight, we've seen him look a lot less aggressive, and hasn't had that killer instinct since that Klitschko fight. And he's been starting slow in a lot of his fights. So to sit there and just assume that he's just going to flip the switch for this fight after a long period of time of having that go away, it's always going to be in the back of your mind. When as a fighter, when you've been hurt several times, been knocked down several times, and you've been knocked out before, and it's always in the back of your mind. I would imagine that could happen again, and it almost happened again in this Usyk fight in the 12th round, where he looked very, very hurt. So we hear these comments. I love all these people writing Joshua off. You watch how they won't give him credit for the win. They will say Usyk wasn't mentally there because of the war. I don't know, man. I mean, to sit there and not be skeptical of Joshua, so you just automatically to sit there and just automatically think that the only reason why he lost that fight was because he wasn't aggressive enough. I think that's ridiculous, because again, you're going to need more than just aggression to beat Usyk, right? Because he makes adjustments in fights. To sit there and just assume, oh well, Joshua fought the wrong fight. What fight can he fight that's going to work against Usyk? Again, go back and watch the fight. He did make an adjustment in rounds 5 through 8. And then in making those adjustments, Usyk made another adjustment. And he started stepping off to his right, and he started throwing the right hook more. And then he was dropping down his left hand to the body. So he kind of changed directions, right? And he switched up his attack. Whereas before he was coming in with the jab straight up the middle, and he was shooting the straight left down the pike. He was going in and out more. In this instance, when Joshua became more aggressive, he was basically stepping around him. He was turning him, but he was going in the opposite direction, right? He was going in the opposite direction than he was earlier in the fight. And he started throwing more body shots, and he started throwing the right hook. He started throwing the right hook lead. He started hooking off the jab instead of sneaking the left hand down the middle. And Joshua had a hard time adjusting to that, because he was getting hit with so many left hands early. He started looking for that punch, and then when that punch wasn't the second or first punch in the sequence, and the right hook became a weapon for Usyk, and then that left hand was being dropped to the body, and Usyk was making that was throwing more feints later in the fight, right? Because of those adjustments Usyk made after Joshua made his adjustment. Joshua couldn't make a second adjustment. Usyk made like 3 adjustments in that fight. Joshua made 1, and that 1 adjustment that he made wasn't good enough. So I'm not going to count AJ out. I mean, he did get Usyk's attention a few times, but Usyk did stand up to the power. And to just sit there and think that Usyk's going to be like Andrew Ruiz and just mentally fall apart for this fight. A lot of people are talking about the war in Ukraine. I think the war in Ukraine is going to be a motivating factor for Usyk. I think it's going to make him fight harder. I think it's going to make him fight better because now he has something bigger to fight for other than just himself, other than just the accolades. Now he's fighting. He's got the country. He's got the weight of the country on his back, right? So this is not only a win for him in this fight. This is a win for his country. And if you look at his face, he looks more dialed in. He looks more serious. He looks more calculated. He looks more intense for this fight than he did for the first fight. That's just my opinion. So we'll see what happens. But again, I think this is a highly questionable move. But, well, again, when AJ hurt him, he didn't press the action. You know why he didn't press the action? Because as soon as he landed a good shot, Usyk moved off to the side and wasn't in front of him, and he couldn't follow up. Again, no one just sits there and says, hey, man, I'm going to throw a hard punch, and I'm not going to follow up. It all depends on what the opponent does. I'm sure Joshua wanted to do a lot of things in that fight, but because of Usyk's movement, because of Usyk's skill set, he couldn't do it. It's not what AJ didn't do. It's what Usyk did do, and it's what Usyk can do. The fact that Usyk is a much more versatile fighter than AJ, that is what won him the fight. And I think AJ was also surprised at how hard Usyk hits. I believe maybe AJ didn't expect Usyk to have as much power as he did. And AJ's always seemed to be fading later in the fights, right? He goes through that period of time where his output drops off. He looks tired, and Usyk just never gets tired. He's like that Energizer bunny that keeps going. So, okay, when Derek hurt him, he walked him down and put the pressure on. But again, Derek Chisora lost the last 7 rounds of the fight. So obviously the sustained pressure worked for a little bit. And then Usyk started making adjustments in that fight, right? Started moving a little bit more, started outmaneuvering Derek Chisora like he outmaneuvered Anthony Joshua. And then the pressure stopped working because he made the adjustment. All you got to do is watch. Be objective and take the emotion out of it and look at what happened. Take the emotion out of it, right? And just be objective. The fact that Usyk makes adjustments, and because of his boxing IQ is that much higher than just about everyone else's, right? That's why he's winning these fights. It's not what Joshua didn't do. It's what Usyk did do. A lot of things that Joshua wanted to do, he couldn't do because Usyk would not oblige him. That's the simple facts of it, right? So being more aggressive could possibly be Joshua's downfall in the second fight, because the more aggressive he is, the more energy he's going to expend, and then the more fatigued he will be as the fight goes on. And then Usyk, who never gets tired, who seems to always kick in a second gear in a fight, who seems to finish a fight stronger towards the end of the fight, right? We saw how he finished the fight against Joshua. We saw how he finished the fight against Chisora. He came on strong, and and Chisora and Joshua ended up fading because once again, you can't sit there and round after round put all that pressure on a guy, and then eventually, when he starts making you miss, when he starts stepping around you, starts slipping the shots, and you start missing, right? That's going to take a lot of energy out of you. So if AJ cannot get Usyk out of there early, I don't see him being able to stop him late. So my thing is this: if AJ can't get Usyk out of there within the first seven or eight rounds, I think AJ could possibly get stopped late in this fight, in my opinion. But guys, I got to get out of here. I got to start my day, but I just wanted to jump on and talk about this because this is crazy to me, man. I don't understand it. Makes no sense that the DAZN would sign this deal with Joshua and not have this rematch with Usyk be part of the deal. I just don't get it. What is the plan here? So AJ loses. If AJ loses, right? What's the next big fight for him? Could be Wilder, right? Could be Wilder. AJ versus a Joe Joyce, that's a good fight. AJ versus a Daniel Dubois, that's a good fight. Those are all good fights. I'm sure they'd be good domestic level fights in the UK. But will they be as big? Would Saudi pay $150 million for those fights? Right? That's the question. So this is a gigantic fight with Usyk, this rematch. This is a gigantic fight. Right? It's a gigantic fight. And for DAZN to allow themselves to not be part of it, once again, is a head scratcher. This is ridiculous. You can win a fight on cuts. Is that what you're hoping for, brother? We're going to go into a training camp saying, one of the strategies is we're going to try and cut him and win the fight on cuts. This is ridiculous. I got to get out of here, man. I mean, you got to be objective, bro. Stop it. I've boxed before, and I'm not a great boxer. I actually sucked, but I've never heard a trainer say, "Yeah, I want you to go out there. I want you to go out there." No, they won't be bidding on the rights. They can't. It's not part of the deal. They can't bid on the fight. It's impossible. They can't bid on the fight because it's not part of the deal. Now, if Saudi decides that they want the DAZN to be part of it, it's all up to Saudi. So stop. Don't be ridiculous. Don't say things that you want to be true that you know that aren't true. The DAZN can't bid on the fight. They can't. They can't bid on the fight. No, they can't. They can't bid on the fight. They're not part of the deal. They're not part of the deal. They're not part of the deal. So, I mean, I'm sure they already have bid on the fight. Well, I retract that statement. Of course they can bid on the fight. I apologize. I think you're correct. Yes, they can bid on the fight. What I'm meaning to say is, what difference does it make if they bid on it or not if Saudi is hell bent on them picking who they want as the broadcaster, right? They can, I agree with you, they can 100% bid on the fight. But does that even matter? Does that even matter? Just like they bid on the fight with Canelo versus Plant. They wanted to, they made a bid for that. Did it matter? Did it matter? Right? Saudi paid $150 million for the fight. They can pick the DAZN. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. The fight was signed, what, 2 or 3 weeks ago? Right? You would have thought that if it was going to be on DAZN, it would have been announced already. I suspect that they're not going to pick DAZN, to be very, and the way Eddie was talking, he didn't seem too confident that they would. So we'll see what happens. I could be wrong here, but the fact that they didn't lock this fight in as part of Joshua's deal, you have to question that move. If you're not questioning that move, then I don't know what the hell to say to you. So yeah, they can bid on the fight. I stand corrected, but my response to that is they could bid on a lot of fights, and there's a lot of fights that they could have had on there that they could have bid on that they lost. They didn't put on the Devin Haney, George Kambosos fight, right? They didn't put on friggin' the Canelo Caleb Plant fight, right? So of course it doesn't matter to you as long as you can watch it. But again, we're giving our opinions on the fact that this is not on DAZN. It's a talking point. You know what I mean? It's a talking point. It's part of the sport. We're talking about it. So again, if you're in the UK, you're more than likely going to watch it at the same price that you always would watch it at. We should be concerned about the success of DAZN or Matchroom, because if DAZN or Matchroom fails, then where are all the fighters who fight on Matchroom? Where are all the fighters who fight on DAZN? Where are they going to go? It's not good for the sport when you lose a platform that is giving you fights, because then you're not going to be able to watch the fights. So you could say, well, look at HBO. Oh, they got out of boxing, but then you had other platforms emerge like ESPN Plus, and you had DAZN emerge, and you have Pro Box TV. So if DAZN goes away and there's nothing to replace it, then there's going to be a lot of fighters who aren't going to have a place to go and a place to fight on. When you look at some of these, like, where's Katie Taylor going to go? I mean, I guess you can go on Sky. I guess you can go, maybe Boxer and Sky would pick up a lot of these fighters. But again, we'll see what happens. So I think it's good. I think it's good that we have a lot of platforms on the sport of boxing. What I think is bad is the fact that these platforms are still signing fighters to long-term deals when it's a big risk, because you don't know what's going to happen. You sign a guy to a 6-fight deal. If he loses a couple times and he loses his marketability, then you're going to take a bath on him. I think that these they should go back to the old days where they sign a fighter for two fights, maybe tops 3, but these 6 to 8 fight deals are ridiculous. And I think DAZN needs to, reassess how they do business in the future. Yeah, but DAZN can bid on it, but the fact that they're not locked in to get this fight is crazy to me. So it is what it is, man. I got to break out of here, but I'll catch you guys later. Make sure you tune into the roundtable tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be back later tonight, man. Have a great day, guys. Take care, everybody. Oh, and I just want to end it on this. Yeah, the DAZN can bid on the fight, but I don't think I suspect strongly that if they were going to get the fight, they would have gotten it by now. That's just my opinion. All right, Beavis out. Talk to y'all soon. Peace. Have a good one. And if I'm wrong, I'll come back here and correct myself. Peace out, guys.